righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
I'll see if Steve.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR on this Monday, March the 30th, 2026. I'm Tim Wildman with Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Chris Woodward. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so there's a big No Kings protest. Is it nationwide yesterday?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Do you know the cities, Chris? Or
not off the top of my head, but it's safe to say it was nationwide because there were demonstrations or rallies, protests, whatever you want to call them, from the West Coast over to the East.
All right, we'll talk about that in just a moment. But Ed, first of all, this is Easter week, or Holy Week, as many Christians around the world call it, Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday, and we do have a king.
Yes, we do.
How you like what I did there?
Yeah, I was about to say, well, I'm a king in my own castle, but then you went full biblical on me.
I did. That'll preach right there what I just did.
That will preach. We have a king, and guess what? He's not just king because we say he is, and we submit to him. He's king over the whole shooting match. We're talking about Jesus Christ. He rules and reigns from the right hand of God the Father, and it doesn't matter whether people submit to his lordship or not. He is king. And this is Holy Week. Yesterday was Palm Sunday, and we have Easter coming up, Good Friday, on the horizon. And so around the world, many Christians, hundreds of millions of Christians, are focusing their attention on the crucifixion and resurrection of our Lord. And we are, as Christians, beholden to our Savior and Lord Jesus Christ. And this is a week when Christians celebrate that. It's kind of a weird thing to say. We celebrate a crucifixion, but it's through that crucifixion that we have all been made righteous before God.
Yeah, we celebrate the crucifixion in the sense that it was a sacrifice for our sins.
Right.
The sins of the whole world, and then the whole world, and by that I mean each individual person who's lived or ever will live. But Jesus Christ, we celebrate the crucifixion, but we celebrate the resurrection.
The resurrection. That's why we call Easter Resurrection Sunday.
Yeah.
And the importance of that, there's a lot of theological significance of that, but the Bible makes clear, 1 Corinthians 15, the Apostle Paul is saying that if Jesus Christ has not been raised from the dead, then we are of all men most to be pitied, because the resurrection is what enables whatever Christians to overcome the power of death. When we die, we look forward to our body's resurrection, but it opens heaven to those who put their faith and trust in Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So
amen. Well, it's Holy Week, and we hope that you and your family, have some great plans ahead. Good Friday, and then we got Easter Sunday. By the way, just real quick, Easter Sunday is celebrated around the world. You mentioned by hundreds of millions of Christians. Is that celebrated by is it every Christian around the world?
No, Eastern Orthodox have and this has to do, I don't know the technicalities of this, but that has to do with the way Easter is. There's something to do with the equinox, and there's all kinds of things.
No, break it down.
I can't. But
Chris
Eastern
can.
Orthodox,
Chris, break it down.
I think their celebration of Easter is maybe a couple of weeks later, I can look up the.
Has to do with the calendar, but
It has to
Easter-
do with the calendar, but
Yeah.
it's for the most part, it is going to be Catholics and Protestants who will celebrate this Sunday.
Right.
And
I know this. If I was Eastern Orthodox, I would wait until after we've observed what we call Easter and buy all the candy on discount that Kroger is trying to get rid of, because you could save a ton of money.
well,
You know-
I think I said last week that when I was growing up, because my mom was raised Greek Orthodox, my dad was raised Catholic, that we had 2 Easters. And all right, so the Eastern Orthodox Easter falls on Sunday, April 12th. So it'll be I guess it'll be just 1 week later than that's celebrated by those in the West.
But if you wonder why Easter moves around and Christmas doesn't, for example, Easter has to do with the calendar, with the when spring. I'm going to throw in the word equinox right here. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's a very impressive word to just
Yes.
toss around, because people go, I think I know what that means, but they sound like they really do.
Well,
But
it's
equinox.
used,
Go ahead.
yeah, it's used. I'm looking this up now. So it's used, calculated in the East using the Julian calendar,
Okay.
which lags 13 days behind the Gregorian calendar used by Western churches, causing Orthodox Easter to often occur later than Western. My sister, who eventually went back to the Greek Orthodox Church, she and Eastern Orthodox churches call Easter as Pascha, I think, Pascha. Pascha. I do have some Orthodox friends who are probably pulling their hair out at me fumbling my way through this. So let's just say that within a week's time or thereabouts, all of Christendom,
Right.
all Christians around the world will be celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
However, the Greek Orthodox will have more incense than anybody else.
They will in their church services.
Huh?
I just going to confess, the few times I went to Eastern Orthodox services growing up,
Right.
because my parents didn't raise us in church at all.
Right.
One was Catholic, the other was Orthodox. They couldn't figure out what to do, so we did nothing. But I did go up here on probably 2 or 3 Easters. We went to the Greek Orthodox Church, and I always liked the incense.
Yeah.
And I always, so
Yeah.
you're right. They have more incense than
Yeah.
any other. Not just Greek Orthodox,
Yeah.
all Eastern Orthodox.
I had when we went to Israel this past August, JJ and I, we were at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and the guy comes in with the incense, and JJ was like in the guy's way, and he was like, "Excuse me," and so we almost caused an incident. But
You mean you almost caused a incident with incense?
yes, we sure did. We sure did.
It was the great
JJ was in his
incident.
way, but JJ, oh, excuse me, and moved.
Now, I would pay to see a conversation between J.J. Jasper and a Greek Orthodox priest.
It would
that-
begin with, "Here's the deal."
Anyway, I do apologize to
Yeah.
Eastern Orthodox friends. I did a terrible job.
Yeah.
AI
Well,
saved
I would
me.
have gone
I
with
think this
Pascal.
is one of those things where we say we get the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get the idea. All right, today's issue is the name of this program. Thanks for listening, Tim, Ed, and Chris. And Chris, what's first on the news agenda?
Well,
here?
let's begin with that No King stuff, because I did look it up, and it's safe to say that thousands of cities, and perhaps towns included in with this, but thousands of places in the U.S. participated in what's being called nationwide No Kings rallies. These are those things that started a couple of years ago when people started to show up outside the offices of members of Congress, senators, what have you, and they're protesting. They're saying things like Donald Trump is not a king, and they're saying all kinds of stuff about particularly the Trump administration and members of Congress that approve policies from President Trump. The reason why this is in the news today is because these things just occurred, but also Fox News and a few other news outlets did some digging and have found that as many as 500 groups with an estimated $3 billion in combined annual revenues were behind this most recent No Kings rallies, including communist groups who used the day to call for a so-called revolution. And I've got some audio on all this from a guy named Joe Contra, who had this to say on Fox. Clip 1.
The only word that comes to mind is contrived, right? You see Jane Fonda reading a script. I thought this was organic, just speak from the heart. De Niro, same thing, was tripping all over his script when he was reading his as well. And let's repeat that number you just said, $3 billion behind these so-called protests. That doesn't exactly scream grassroots or organic. And we saw several videos of people at these protests who said they were paid to march and they were carrying signs that were made for them. So this appears to be pretty much a made for social media event. And quite frankly, again, that word contrived, I can't get away from, because again, all the people that are there will vote for the Democrat nominee in the next presidential election. But how can you march and say no kings when literally the last Democratic nominee was installed without one vote from the public in Kamala Harris?
Now, we even had some no kings people here in the Tupelo area outside the office of Congressman Trent Kelly.
We did. Did you see them?
I did not, but people here that were driving through Tupelo on that particular time.
What are they protesting, Ed? Take the most sincere approach here. These people.
Yeah. To be try to understand where they're coming from.
Ed.
Yeah, this is yet another reaction to something that Donald Trump is doing. I think, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was primarily over the ICE deportations.
Now it is. Yes.
Now it is. Mm-hmm. But this is hurling whatever insults they can muster against Donald Trump, claiming that he is acting imperially. Mm-hmm. He's acting like a king or an emperor.
Yeah.
And they're insisting that the United States of America does not have kings. And I don't know anybody from either side of the political aisle who wants a king.
Right.
So the fact that it is now coming out that this is funded, at least to a large extent, by a wide variety of groups not necessarily connected to the No Kings movement, and some of those are communist organizations, revolutionary organizations, makes it clear in my mind, to me, that the far left is a revolutionary movement that hates America, hates our founding, hates Christianity, hates God, and wants to overthrow our current regime so it can be replaced with a communist, Marxist movement. And Donald Trump is the lightning rod. He represents everything that people hate about America. This is why the far left, I will give some Democrats the benefit of the doubt, the far left has hated from the moment Donald Trump ran initially in 2015 under Make America Great Again. They so hate America on the left, they don't want America to exist at all in its present form. They don't want to make America great again. They want to end America as we've known it and install a Marxist government. That's my opinion, and the fact that these protests are funded by Marxist groups and revolutionary groups, I think, solidifies my opinion.
It's those people taking over the party and convincing people to move in their direction, move it even further left. That's the reason why we bring in stories about how you've got Democratic national conventions where people boo God now.
Right.
And they say and do awful things just in public here. And the entire time they've been doing these No Kings things, people on the right have said, this is silly. We have a No Kings Day already. It's called July 4th or Independence Day, when we left a monarchy. Speaking of Democrats here, somebody that's getting roasted for things that she said over X is Senator Mazie Hirono, Mazie Hirono.
She's a senator
from Hawaii.
I heard from her in a
Democrat,
while.
yeah.
Where's she been?
Well, she needs to learn how to come up with a better thing to put on X, because she tried to do this whole virtue signal thing here. Many members of Congress were posting things about No King's Day over the weekend. And Senator Hirono said, quote, Donald Trump is not, never will be, and has never been a king, #No Kings. And for that statement that he's never been a king, she was getting responses from Republicans, including Texas Representative Chip Roy, who says, so you agree, you think your No Kings rallies are stupid.
Well, the whole point of the No Kings rally is they're accusing Trump of being a king, acting like a king. Okay, no restraints on him. He doesn't pay attention to this law or this. Okay, so when Senator Hirono posts on X that Trump never has been a king and never will be a king, she's basically inadvertently undercutting the whole movement.
Yeah.
And her reason for posting.
This is, you know what? Any president of the United States has enormous power at his disposal. So much so that you would think it's king worthy. Okay, that's just the way it is. A president of the United States, duly elected, is the commander in chief of the United States military. Appoints the whole executive branch of the federal government and their leadership, which includes cabinet positions. It includes all the federal agencies. So I'm not so sure what President Trump has done any differently than any other president. If you go back and look in history, is he a king? No, but he has enormous power and he utilizes it. So we do have checks and balances in our federal government. We have an executive branch, we have a legislative branch, and we have a judicial branch. And the judicial branch has checked President Trump like they've checked other presidents from time to time on things that they think go beyond his powers. So, you know, if you don't like President Trump, then I guess vote Democrat next time around, or the next.
And the fact that you can vote,
Democrat, proves that he's not a king.
Proves that he's not a king, because kings don't let you vote and throw the king out of office.
I bet you none of these no kings Democrats had anything to say when Barack Obama was out there bragging about having a pen and a phone.
Yeah,
that's very king-like.
That's what I'm saying. Just much of it is just opposition to President Trump.
Right.
And President Trump does his share of egging them on, you know.
He does.
I mean, he said something about he wants to take the oil in Iran. Did he not say that?
Yes, and there have been even comments in recent days about the Strait of Trump instead of the Strait of Hormuz. Did he say that? Well, people are quoting him as saying it. I don't have the audio myself and have not heard the audio of him saying it.
See, you do things like you say things like that, all right?
Or take Cuba. I might take Cuba.
He
say
did say
things
that.
like that. That's what a king does.
And he may, and like you said, he may just be trolling the Democrats and the media.
The Gulf of Trump.
He still shouldn't say things like that, because this is not a time for flippancy. You know, if you want to get that, you can get that right here on Today's Issues. You know, 'cause we can bring the flippancy.
We can be flippant.
Yeah, we can be flippant. But I'm just saying, President Trump does himself no favors with, I would say, a significant percentage of Americans when you say things like, we'll just take their oil, because it sounds like. Now, am I misquoting him?
No, you're not. And as a matter of fact, according to the New York Post, I'll even share this on our Facebook.
That's a conservative publication, pretty much.
They have quoted President Donald J. Trump as saying, quote, they have to open up the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, see, anyway, I know some people disagree with me. I just don't think that's appropriate to say in this time of war to make flippant comments like that, because it lends itself to the Democrats seizing on those words and using them. Not most Republicans know what's going on here, but the general public, when you say things like President Trump says, like take their oil in Iran, that's not the reason we went to war with Iran. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it wasn't even listed as a reason.
Correct.
Go ahead.
And I don't care who the president is. I don't think the United States should be looting countries if we defeat them in war. And winning this war against Iran is a long way from being accomplished. I'm not even sure it can be accomplished. But you don't take their stuff once you win. Okay, I disagree with that. Now, I'm sure there are listeners who have their own opinions. This is my opinion, those people in Iran need the oil and the refineries and that income to run their own country. I don't want to occupy Iran to make sure we quote unquote get the oil, and I don't think it's right to loot a country once you defeat them in war. And that is assuming that we win this war, and that is a big if.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're still fighting out there.
But I agree with you, Tim. This is a lot of these comments are flippant. We could see hundreds or even thousands of Americans killed as this war escalates, and it looks like it is probably going to escalate because the radical Muslims in charge of Iran aren't going to lay down and die, and they're not going to quit, and they're not going to surrender. And I'm afraid that the Trump administration is going to want to invade the country. We could see hundreds, maybe thousands, who knows, tens of thousands of Americans die, and this is a very serious issue.
God forbid.
God forbid.
God forbid.
God help us.
Here's what I'm just going to quote President Trump. I'm going to quote him here. He said to the Financial Times on Sunday, it'd be yesterday, quote, "To be honest with you, my favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran, but some stupid people back in the U.S. say, why are you doing that? But they're stupid people."
Well, I guess I'm stupid.
Huh?
I guess I'm stupid then.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Anyway,
I'm not naive. I know, especially in the late 1800s, early 1900s, we went to war with, we went to war with Mexico. Even earlier than that, we went, we've taken stuff before. I understand that. I'm not naive. And I'm not going to tell you that all the things that America has done has been from a Christian perspective. I'm going to get.
But a lot of our history is excuse me for interrupting, to credit us. We have saved the world a couple of different times.
Yeah.
Not alone.
Right.
But from tyranny, from dictators, from people enslaving others, from genocide, we've got involved. Our history is ripe with occasions where the United States has got involved in things, but that may not necessarily affect us directly, but because of our values, our belief in protecting innocent human life, for example. And yes, we have our own interest, and we have to have our own interest around the world. That's why it bothers me when people want to be isolationists, like we can. In this day and age, we can just withdraw and maybe just protect Virginia Beach and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Like we can live an island to ourselves. That's not possible. We have to have military stationed around the world because we have interest around the world, financially and otherwise. So anyway, but there are.
I was going to say that. I was.
My bad.
No, that's all right. I was going to say I'm not naive about we have done things in our own self-interest, especially in our hemisphere. But with especially the wars, World War I and World War II, all right, we got involved to help someone else, Europe in this case. We did the Marshall Plan after World War II to rebuild much of war-torn Europe. Now, yes, we did that to make sure it didn't go over to the communists and the Soviet Union, but we still poured money into Europe to help rebuild. We helped rebuild Japan after we defeated them in war. And what I'm saying is I want to make sure we stick with that kind of characterization that America gets involved with wars as a last resort. It is to help other people, to preserve freedom, not to take someone else's stuff. Because if we do that, then the Russians can take Ukraine, China can take Taiwan, North Korea can take South Korea, and we've got no moral argument with what they're doing because we did the same thing. I don't want us to become that.
Yeah. We'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Lots more to discuss and talk about in the news. We'll see you back here in a couple of minutes.
It's my turn. Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Some time ago, a friend of mine told a story. It was a story about two women who each went to the bank to borrow $1,000. Because the story so beautifully illustrates the extremes of human nature, I'd like to share it with you. The two ladies lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and it so happened that they both banked at the same bank. It was through coincidence and providence that the story came to light. The first lady went to the bank, and in the course of the discussion concerning the borrowing of that $1,000, the banker asked her what she wanted the money for. She explained to the banker that she had a wonderful opportunity. The dancing club that she was a member of was selling life memberships for only $1,000. She wished to borrow the money to become a life member of that club, and then for the rest of her life she could dance and dance and dance. Well, the second lady came to the banker and sought to borrow the same amount of money. Asked what she was planning on doing with the money, she told her situation. She said that she was a woman who worked for a very moderate salary and never had much money to command. She explained also that she was a member of a certain church in that city and that her church meant very much to her. Then she told the banker she'd always had a dream that someday she'd be able to give $1,000 to her church. She explained to the banker that her church was at a point where the money could be used to great advantage. She knew she'd never have $1,000 to give to her church, so she wanted to borrow that $1,000 and give it to her church now while it would do so much good. Two women, each wanting the same amount of money, but how far apart are the purposes for which they desired the money. Membership in a dancing club and fathering the work of the carpenter of men. You know, it's a story of life, a story of selfishness and love, competing with each other for control of the individual. A story of one who wished to borrow money to spend entirely on herself, and a story of one who wished to borrow money to spend entirely on others. Basically, most of us are a mixture of the two. We want to give away and we want to keep. This is the great struggle in the hearts of mankind. There's something in us urging us to wrap our hands around our money, and there's something in us urging us to give our money away for constructive purposes. In a few of us, there is proper balance, but in the most of us, the desire to keep prevails. The possessions we have are given to us only for a period. We don't own them. We can only use them. And while we can't take them with us, the way we use them now is an indication as to the place we will go when we're through using them.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
You are my refuge and my shield. I have put my hope in your word. Psalm 119, verse 114.
This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues here on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Chris, thanks for listening to AFR, American Family Radio. Hey, did you see the end of the UConn versus Duke game last night?
I watched it this morning after you told me about it. Now, I had a men's meeting at church last night, and so didn't get home in time to watch anything and went to bed and forgot all about it, to be honest. But that was incredible.
Okay. I just tell people, even if you're not a big sports fan or whatever like that.
Do we have this?
We have the audio, yes.
We have the audio.
Okay, I didn't see it live.
Yeah.
I didn't either.
I just noticed that this was Sweet 16. No, this was
Elite
Eight in the NCAA men's basketball tournament, and it was between UConn and Duke to decide who goes to the Final Four. and those are two legendary basketball programs.
Yeah.
But the way the game ended, Duke had the basketball, with just a few seconds left in the game, and they were up by 2.
Yeah.
All they had to do is hold the ball or get by one. But the ball, it's hard to hear it in this, but in this radio we're about to play, but you'll hear at the end, UConn gets the ball and launches a moonshot.
Yes. It was halfway between the top of the key and half court.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is like out of a movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you wouldn't believe it if it was in a movie.
For sports fans, you remember the Christian Leitner shot
Yeah, I
that
remember
beat
it.
Kentucky?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's shown over and over again. This is in that category.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're about to hear the announcer describe it.
Yes, the ending of the UConn Duke game. Clip 15.
Seconds to go. Got to cut and run through the ball. And who better than this guy?
Get it into Boozer. Back for Sarr. Ahead. Boozer. That ball deflected and stolen by Mullins. Caravan, 2 seconds. Mullins tosses it out. Oh! It's good. We're .3. UConn goes in front.
There was still
incredible.
a couple seconds left on the clock. After
It was
he hit
.3.
Yeah.
Oh, .3, not even a second. .3, you can't even breathe.
Yeah.
No, Duke threw the ball full
Yeah.
court, hoping for a tip in, but it was swatted away. It really was an extraordinary. And Duke, I watched about the last 5 minutes. Duke was consistently up by 2 points, 4 points.
Yeah.
And UConn won it on that final.
But this is one of those things when you're a kid in your backyard and you're 9 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're shooting hoops by yourself and you go, and here's the pass over to Wildman.
To me.
Yeah, to me. And he shoots deep. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it. I can get the ball back again. I'm going to try this again.
Yeah.
I'm going to try this again.
We
But
had
anyway, this guy hits this guy, he was a true freshman too, I think, last night for UConn. He hits the bottom of the net from about 35 feet.
Yeah. It was extraordinary.
To put them up by 1 point.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was magical. We had a similar situation in women's basketball about 10 years ago when Morgan William hit a shot to defeat UConn.
Morgan Willem.
And,
girls basketball.
Yeah, UConn hadn't lost a game in like 100 years. And so it was a very David Goliath moment. What's interesting about this UConn-Duke game is I think UConn was down like 15 or 16 at the half. Like Duke just dominated them for most of that game.
They clawed their way back.
Except at the very end. And that's why they call it March Madness.
I don't think God cares who wins a basketball game. But if he did, he was a UConn fan last night.
Well,
Okay.
could it be that Duke is the Devils?
Well, they are the
this is
Blue
Holy
Devils.
Week.
Blue Devils.
Okay. And we also have Wake Forest Demon Deacons. I don't know what's going on in North Carolina and their seminaries, but, I mean, we need to exercise those demons.
You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Next story, Chris.
All right. Before we went to break, I saw a story on CNN that said TSA workers are now starting to get paid. This has to do with an executive order from President, I may or may not be a King, Donald Trump, on Friday, who signed an executive order saying that these TSA workers are going to start being paid, including back pay, thanks to funds already approved under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Now, for people that have not been paying attention to this story, the reason why we're in a partial government shutdown is because Democrats don't like ICE. And so they have been doing things with DHS, of which ICE falls under the umbrella of. Democrats have been trying to block or not approve funding, and that's why we have a lot of TSA workers and other people going without pay. To his credit, ABC's Jonathan Karl, who's not a conservative. Yeah. He had Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen on, a Democrat, over the weekend. And to his credit, ABC's Jonathan Karl, kind of holds Van Hollen's feet to the fire and says, what are you guys doing here? This is a pretty lengthy clip, but Brent's got it for us, and he'll play the clip now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what's confusing here is you have fought and blocked the funding for the Department of Homeland Security because you object, as you just outlined, to what ICE has been doing, and you wanted to force changes. And yet, the only thing that has been assured throughout all of this is that ICE already has the money. Because as you said, $75 billion passed in the budget bill last year. So you're holding up the entirety of the Department of Homeland Security because you object to ICE and you want changes to ICE. But through it all, ICE continues to have the money it needs.
John, we're not holding up all of the money for all the Department of Homeland Security. That's just a false statement. We have said repeatedly, repeatedly, we should fund TSA, we should fund FEMA, we should fund the Coast Guard. We are not prepared to give ICE another $10 billion on top of the monies they already have and are using in many of these lawless operations. We're not going to give them another $10 billion unless they make fundamental reforms,
over that $10 billion, you're holding up everything
for
else.
the killing of American citizens.
And fighting over that additional $10 billion, you are holding up the rest of Department of Homeland Security.
We're not holding it up.
I mean,
you're saying, no, John, we're not holding it up. We have now voted 10 times.
Right, but you're holding up unless it doesn't include money for ICE. That's just a fact.
Unless it doesn't include money for ICE, a very reformed ICE. That's right.
Which already has the money.
Why not fund TSA now? That's what we've said.
I mean,
okay.
Yeah, kudos to Jonathan Karl.
Yeah,
for at least pushing back on this.
You know, okay, so to review here, the Democrats are, they would like to do away with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, right?
Well, at least as it currently operates, they want to change everything.
Right. But that's my opinion. They want to do away with it altogether because they want people to be able to come into our country, our stolen land, and roam and do whatever they want to because they don't really believe in controlling the border. Where's your proof, Tim? Well, look at the Biden years. So, I mean, he let everybody in, and it began to be so. It cost the Democrats the election. One of the reasons. So the reaction to that. Remember the Democrats, mayors in cities saying, "Well, quit sending us these folks," and this is Democrats saying, "Yeah, we can't." They're overwhelmed. So I don't think Democrats. That's my opinion. I don't think they want to stop illegal immigration into America. Now, with respect to this is creating the Department of Homeland Security. The Democrats are not wanting to fund. Now, he was trying to parse that Democrat senator. Who was that from Maryland?
Senator Chris Van Hollen.
He was trying to say, well, we are for funding TSA. We are for funding FEMA. But we're just not for funding. We're not for funding ICE as it's currently constituted, or as they currently operate. He called them lawless. The problem again is that ICE is already funded through 2029, as I understand it. So the Democrats, by refusing to just fund the Department of Homeland Security, period, are causing a lot of grief and pain for American travelers, especially at airports, in the name of not giving ICE money that ICE already has. So I think Jonathan Karl there from ABC News, which is a liberal news network, but kudos to him, was asking, what is the point of what you're doing here? I think, this is my opinion, I think the point of the Democrats doing what they're doing here is just to try, hopefully it will deflect bad on President Trump and the Republicans, and that people will blame them more than they blame the Democrats. And it just causes chaos for the traveling public, and they hope that they blame President Trump and the Republicans and the problems in quotations with ICE. So I think it's a political calculation.
Plus, he was saying that we'll fund Homeland Security as long as we get our way, and if we don't get our way when it comes to ICE, we won't fund it, and then we'll blame the Republicans because they didn't give us our way. That's the way the Democrats are running this show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've got some audio of people on television talking about this. Byron York, a columnist, writes for various websites, does appearances on Fox. He was on this morning to say that Democrats are refusing to fund DHS purely to just get rid of any kind of immigration control. Clip 9.
Look, the fact is, Democrats are not agreeing to fully fund the Department of Homeland Security until they get what they want in terms of restrictions on ICE. And the totally insane part of this is, and it's been true from the day one, Democrats have taken aim at ICE and they hit TSA, forcing the closure, forcing the stopping payment of TSA agents for more than 6 weeks now. And it doesn't make any sense to the public because it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, bingo, All right, next topic.
All right, CPAC has wrapped up. And
what is CPAC?
CPAC is the political convention of conservatives.
People use these when they sleep, have sleep apnea. Am I right?
CPAP?
Yeah.
CPAP machines?
Yeah. Not the masks, but the rallies. All right. So
it's the Conservative Political Action Conference.
Thank you very much. They had another big gathering. This one was in Texas over the weekend, and as has always been the case, they have a straw poll at the end of CPAC. It's not official, but it is something that they've done every year, and it gets a lot of.
These are crazy conservatives like us, right? Yes. And they've gathered in Texas. They gather annually. The CPAC. Sandy Rios usually goes and does her show from CPAC. Yep. Jenna has. And others in the past, So we for the CPAC, we would be kindred spirits here. Mm-hmm. But I've never been to a. Have you ever been to a CPAC conference?
I've not. They're generally not as focused either, are they, on social issues?
They've kind of moved away from that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they have been in the past some, but mostly it's just the
conservative, constitutional, patriotic.
Yeah, but see, they're meeting in Texas and. Is it over?
It is, yeah, it wrapped up over the weekend. And I bring this up because they have this straw poll, and this may come at no surprise.
What's a straw poll, by the way?
I'm going to look it up.
For those who don't know.
It's just an on-the-spot. It's not a scientific poll.
Yes.
From a polling, it's just an on-the-spot kind of a snapshot. So you got.
But it doesn't involve straws. Plastic or paper.
It does not involve straws. So a straw poll, hey, we got this group of conservatives at CPAC. We're just going to take the temperature of that group in this one moment.
It's not really official.
It's not
I got you.
A scientific poll where you want to get representatives from all political perspectives, that kind of thing.
So among these 1,000 or more, I don't know how many people attended, probably thousands, attending the CPAC convention in the Dallas area. They did a straw poll, a survey about who they want to be president, who they want to run
in 2028
after Trump.
Yes. No surprise here to some people. 53% of activists in the CPAC straw poll chose Vice President J.D. Vance, while 35% chose Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And I have some more audio here talking about this. Reacting to it is Joe Concha, clip 11.
It's a memo to every Republican out there, not named J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. Don't bother running for president next time around. Unless you're approved by MAGA and you're not in this current administration, you will lose. It's really that simple. Marco Rubio has been beyond impressive as Secretary of State and the 18 other jobs that he has at this point. And if you have a J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio ticket, very hard to see how that will be beaten.
I still think we're going to end up with a ticket. I mean, I think that's the way it is because the media will frame it around. You've got Ohio, you've got Florida. Every time we have an election, you got to win Ohio, you got to win Florida.
That is true for Republicans.
I don't know that any Republican has ever been elected president without winning Ohio.
Well, at least in the last probably 75 years or something.
Ohio has trended red.
It has.
As Florida has trended red. That's not always been the case. Florida and Ohio were purple. They're trending red right now the last few years, but who knows if that'll stay. But if you're a Republican, you're looking at the Electoral College map, and you got to get to 270, then you have to win. You almost have to win Florida and Ohio.
Because of the numbers. Because of the numbers. California is solidly blue.
Right.
That's like 55, I think it's 55 electoral votes.
The most.
You got New York and Illinois.
You don't even have to. You roll out of bed with those on election morning.
So you've got to have some of those big states.
Speaking of Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker has always been mentioned amongst the list of Democrats potentially running in 2028.
Right.
Fox just popped up a graphic. It was Newsom, Pritzker of Illinois, Josh Shapiro, the Pennsylvania governor, Gretchen Whitmer, who will be term limited, and
these are all
probably looking for
Democrat
another
governors of big states.
So they do need to come out. The right does need to have a strong ticket because those people are going to come out swinging.
Well, so right now, you know, there was a story also about the CPAC convention about maybe there being division in the ranks over the war in Iran.
Yes. Matt
Is
Gaetz,
that true?
Yes, I can say that based on my own observation of speeches. Matt Gaetz talked about it. He basically was concerned about troops, boots on the ground kind of stuff. Some people I like the fact that we're keeping an Islamic regime from nuking people, but at the same time, I don't want us to be the, people out there losing our lives to protect the world.
I want to talk about that in just a minute, but first of all, so for now, J.D. Vance, the Vice President, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, they're the ones that most conservatives want to see as a ticket.
Correct.
Potentially a ticket going forward for the post-Trump era, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, Vance is probably going to get handed the baton. Does Rubio want to go from being Secretary of State to the VP? You probably have a little more weight being the Secretary of State.
I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see how that works because, Marco Rubio is, 10 years older than J.D. Vance or more?
Yeah.
And being Secretary of State, quite frankly, is as prestigious, if not more prestigious, than being Vice President.
Yeah. Rubio's 54, and Vance is a little bit younger than me. Vance is 41.
So it's 54 or 41.
Mm-hmm.
So would now I understand Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance are really good friends. So if J.D. Vance runs, I don't even know if Marco Rubio would run against him. In a primary type situation. I doubt anybody would, quite frankly. You'll probably get one or two, but nobody who would be able to get close to the numbers that Vance would get should he decide to run. And who knows whether he will or not? What will the world look like in when would that be? A couple of years from now? You would have primaries.
Oh, that'd be in 27, right? Because 28 would be the presidential election, so people would start declaring in
like a
2027.
year from now.
Well, right? Yeah, 2027.
Like a year from now. But anyway, it's J.D. Vance's if he wants it. Basically, there's not going to be anybody. Marco Rubio. I think I read where Marco Rubio has said that he would not run if J.D. Vance was going to run.
Yeah,
and maybe So we'll see what happens there.
By the way, from what I've read, CPAC attendance was much lower this time around than in years past.
Yeah,
they usually have it in D.C.
They've had, it's moved around.
Yeah, they've had it in Maryland. And anyway, the two things being cited as concerns for the people at CPAC, according to various
and sundry
reporting. I mean,
sundry in there.
These are going to be CBS and some of those kind of places, so you never know. But there was concern over the Iran war and price of groceries, the economy. And the economic implications of the war in Iran, if it continues and if it escalates, could drive prices even higher. I know I'm paying a lot more in gas. It keeps going up.
Yes, we are.
And so these are going to be big factors when it comes to the midterms and the conservative movement going forward. So.
Yeah, that again is why this situation in Iran, war, conflict, operation, whatever you want to call it, needs to get resolved pretty quickly because Democrats are still hammering Trump over prices, saying he didn't bring prices down and now gas is outrageous. I'm looking at today's national average for a gallon of regular. It's $4. A month ago, $2.98. In Mississippi, where we live.
Where, Chris?
In Mississippi.
Yeah, okay. No, I just like the way you said that.
In Mississippi. Here, I know prior to Operation Epic Fury beginning, I was paying with just a few fuel points from Kroger. I was paying like under $2. And now I went yesterday, it was $3.49.
Who do you blame for that, Chris?
Well, it's not all. This is going to sound like I'm trying to make an excuse for Trump. Yes, the operation is going on over there, and that has played an impact in the price of oil. A lot of that is people driving up the oil prices through speculation, kind of manipulating the markets to make a few extra bucks. But also, it's the perfect storm in terms of when all this happened, because a lot of places are starting to go on spring break. And this is the time of year when the government requires some stuff be added to gas to make it better for the environment. So you have more expensive fuel, you have demand growing because of spring break, and then you have this war conflict escalation in Iran.
Well,
it's a number of things is what I'm trying to say.
Seems to me this depends. I had somebody told me the other day, well, yes, gas prices are up, but it's a small price to pay for protecting us against Iran having a nuclear weapon. So I guess it's probably going to depend on quote which team you're on. Mm-hmm. If you're of the opinion that I just expressed, that people who trust President Trump's judgment on this, and that presidents have been saying for decades that we can't let Iran get a nuclear weapon. Well, here we are. They're on the verge of getting it, and President Trump decided to step in and do something militarily, which caused the oil prices to go up around the world necessarily. So people would say, well, that I don't blame President Trump for that. On the other side, for people who really don't follow politics that much, they just go, well, gas is up, and I don't care who's in the White House.
Right.
Whoever's in the White House, whether it be Biden. Huh?
There's a lot of that.
Yeah. So remember when the gas prices went up under Biden, he had the Biden stickers on the gas pumps. I did that.
I did that.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
So I think a lot of people who don't keep up with, geopolitical issues very much, they just know, hey, honey, I paid $50, $60 to fill up my car today. Yeah. Well, who's in, well, Trump better get this thing under control. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They just blame whoever's in the White House. Go ahead.
The state average in California is $5.87. The state average. There are parts of California where drivers are paying as much as $6.63 a gallon.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, California is a big state. You got to drive long distances. You got to sit on, interstates with traffic at a crawl, burning gas. That full gas tank evaporates pretty quickly.
That's been one of the big concerns with TSA workers and like LA, because like you said, you sit in traffic and you're not getting. TSA workers don't make a ton of money. Okay, they're government employees, and they're not making a lot of money, and you're not getting paid, and you spent an hour in traffic to go to a job you're not getting compensated.
I'm going to tell you something, how you can save on this. Buy you a car that shuts down every red light.
The auto disable?
That will save you a lot of money.
That'll save you pennies, man.
That'll save you a lot of pennies right there, having it shut down.
Yeah, I have a personal experience with that. Well,
tell
function.
us about it, Chris.
Okay.
You got it 1 minute.
So I've got two vehicles. Okay, they're manufactured by the same automaker.
Okay.
But that button that you can turn off that feature is in different places. So like if I'm in the van, it's in one spot. If I'm in the CRV, it's in another spot, and I have to like pay extra close attention that I don't hit the wrong button, because in one vehicle where I think the button is, it's the parking brake, which you don't want to hit when you're going down the road.
No, you don't. I've often wondered what would happen should you do that.
I pray to God I never hit the wrong button.
I shut my car off one time. Not in traffic. No,
Yeah.
I was at a stoplight, and I wanted to, because I could hear the engine starting to do that shut off thing.
Yeah.
And instead of reaching to the button to turn that feature off, I shut the car off.
Yeah.
But pressed the wrong button.
I've done that a couple of times myself. I mentioned that last week. That's a terrible sinking feeling.
Yeah.
Because you're fumbling around trying to get the car restarted. While the people behind you are getting anxious because you haven't moved in 5 seconds.
Yes. Yeah.
And they think you're texting.
Yes.
And not paying attention, so they're ready to honk.
Yeah.
And give you a friendly gesture.
Yeah.
And so you're going like, no, you don't understand. You can't get out of your car and say, excuse me, I'm trying to get my car restarted here because it's shut down.
Let's have some patience, people.
Yeah, have some.
And then they pull out a gun. That's the way America is.
That's Chicago. Another day in Chicago. All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on AFR. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Do you know the largest unpaid and untrained workforce in America? It's not in a factory or an office. It's the 65 million family caregivers. And if that is you, I understand the journey you're on.
Peter Rosenberger has been a caregiver for 4 decades. He's the host for Hope for the Caregiver, Saturday mornings at 7 Central on AFR.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Trump says there's a difference in the way he and his Director of National Intelligence see the nuclear situation in Iran. Tanya J. Powers has more.
President Trump says he still has confidence in his Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, telling reporters on Air Force One that she has, quote, a different thought process.
I'm very strong on the fact that I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, because if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it immediately. I think she's probably a little bit softer on that issue, but that's okay. Some people are. Most people aren't. Most people are saying thank you very much for doing what you did.
Gabbard has long been considered an anti-interventionist on foreign wars, and questions about her views have come to light since her top aide, Joe Kent, stepped down earlier this month, condemning U.S. involvement in the Middle East.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent telling the New York Post he is launching a new program to crack down on government fraud. He says any whistleblower who comes forward with information regarding illegal fraud schemes would receive a cash reward, which would be up to 30% of the fines recovered by the government. Secretary Bessent says President Trump and the administration are all hands on deck in helping to protect the American taxpayers' money.
It's being stolen from the American taxpayer. We need to be a high-trust society. We need to understand that this is where the money is going. And this administration, this could be hundreds of billions of dollars.
Thousands of tons of Russian oil have arrived in Cuba after President Trump signaled he would lift a block on shipments to the island.
Moscow's Ministry of Transport says a Russian tanker carrying 100,000 tons of crude oil has reached Cuban waters. The United States cut off Venezuelan oil exports to Cuba after ousting President Nicolas Maduro in January, exacerbating an energy crisis. But President Trump signaled a softening of the de facto blockade.
I'd prefer letting it in, whether it's Russia or anybody else, because the people need heat and cooling and all of the other things that you need.
The island of 10 million people has seen strict gasoline rationing and a series of blackouts. Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
A Canadian Christian educator and conservative activist is concerned about Parliament passing a bill that makes it against the law to tell the truth about Muslims and the LGBT community.
The Canadian Liberal Party, with the help of Bloc Québécois, passed the contentious Bill C-9, dubbed the Combating Hate Act, which will now go to the Senate. Conservatives in the New Democrat Party, or NDP, voted against the legislation. What it basically does is remove the religious exemption from Canada's hate speech law. Dr. Charles McVitie, who is president of Canada Christian College, says this will be a nightmare for Christians who espouse God's word.
The Bible is no longer a defense that would get you out of jail. And this, of course, will contribute to a European-like police state where last year 12,000 people in Britain were arrested and put in handcuffs and charged with a crime for posting something on social media.
McVitie says this is really all about the implementation of the Islamic anti-blasphemy laws.
This is all about stopping people from blaspheming Allah or Muhammad or the Muslims in any way, and also blaspheming the transgender community. And most of the charges in the UK are about speech that offended Muslims and the LGBT community.
I'm Chad Groening.
And finally, a deal to fund the Department of Homeland Security has stalled as lawmakers leave Washington for their 2-week recess. but at least some TSA officers are reportedly getting paid because of an executive order. Bill Malusian reports from Capitol Hill.
Our team down at Atlanta Airport talked to a handful of those agents there. They confirmed they did get a paycheck today, though one agent did say his was about 30 hours short of what he had worked. But looking at the bigger picture here, as these airports start trying to get back on track, Border Czar Tom Homan says ICE agents will be staying at those airports until things are running smoothly again.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty P.
The so-called legacy media, instead of just trying to give us the facts of a story, are trying to lead people to a conclusion that reflects a very secular, liberal worldview.
News Director Fred Jackson.
I think the world right now needs to see what is going on in our world from a biblical perspective.
American Family News at the top of each hour on American Family Radio and also at afn.net.
I think there's no question we are making a difference.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Tim with Ed. Thanks for listening to AFR. And now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Steve.
Hey, everybody.
Good weekend for you there, brother Steve?
Oh, man, I had the best weekend. I took my bride to Colorado Springs. I spent 15 years there, and I've been married now for 5 years, and I've always wanted to introduce Heather to some of my dearest friends back there. And so we got to go. We got to meet a couple of them, stayed with my cousin, who is works full-time for the Navigators, the college group.
Yeah.
He is in charge of he does speaking for them and everything, but he's such a good host. We stayed with them, had a great time. Just a
What's
good
the top? What are the top three things to see if you go to Colorado Springs?
Well, the Air Force Academy is probably number one.
Right.
Garden.
Are they open to public tours?
They do. They have a brand new welcome center that they've just put up within the last couple of years.
Okay.
And so you can go see that. You can see the cadets marching around and everything. Number two would probably be Garden of the Gods.
What is that?
That is
like a pagan worship place.
It does, doesn't it?
To me.
If you look it up, it's a park. Basically, there's some red. I don't even know what material it is, but it juts right out of the ground, and it's the most beautiful place. It's so good that the Indians, who the original name, they named it after, said it must be the Garden of the Gods, and I know some
Indians are known for their good, solid theology.
That's true. I have some friends who now call it God's Garden because it is.
But anyway, I'm just kidding around. It's a site to go.
It is a.
There's a.
And number three would be focused on the family.
Okay, but what about Pikes Peak?
Well, that's
That's there too.
Yeah.
It's still there, right?
Oh yeah, it dominates Pikes Peak. When I lived there, and again, I spent 15 years there. I told myself when I first got there wasn't going to be a day that, if the weather permitted and the clouds weren't in the way, I was going to note and look at Pikes Peak. It's just so majestic.
Have you been to the top?
Oh yeah, you can drive to the top. You could walk to the top.
Is it true that the song America the Beautiful was written by a woman who was inspired by her the breathtaking view from the top of Pikes
Purple
Peak?
Mountain's majesty was inspired by Pikes Peak. That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Catherine.
Well, now when you say you can go and watch the cadets, I think one time when I was in New York City, I saw the cadets. Isn't that that kind of Broadway dance routine where the girls kick up their legs?
And that's them.
Is that the rock?
I think that's the Rockettes. Yeah, if you went to that, I think you would know the difference.
You might
between the Rockettes. If you saw them in person, you would definitely know the difference.
Folks, I've never seen the Rockettes except on TV.
Right. Is there something wrong with seeing the Rockettes?
I don't know. It's just the way they dance. Showing an awful lot of leg there, Tim.
Are they?
I remember the Rockettes. I think it was on some when I was growing up. These variety shows.
Yeah.
Remember they would have the Rockettes on every once in a while. And
What's the name of the building that they perform in
Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah,
and that's on tours. They're still kicking it.
Yeah,
as they say.
Well, not the ladies that I probably saw on Lawrence Welk, but
they kicked something else at that point, probably.
Next story, Steve.
All right. I used to have a subscription to a little magazine called The Week. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it.
I remember that.
It's a great digest. It was a great news digest. They had a section there called Boring But Important. And I want to bring something which might qualify under boring but important. The World Health Organization, reading from a Substack author named Natalie Winters, the World Health Organization is expanding a digital certification system first deployed during COVID into a new phase focused on migration and displacement. So basically, the ID system that they used to identify people during COVID, they're now making it a permanent function, and they're going to switch to that so that they can follow and help migration, help people get from one country to the next. This is basically streamlining migration, illegal or whatever, but they're providing, the World Health Organization is getting in the business of making sure that a lot of people cross our border.
Let me ask you something, Steve. You
Yes.
you do a lot of research and interviews on these kind of things. What is it about globalists that makes them so supportive of migration? You think they're just trying to end nation states as we know it so they can have a global international government?
I think the idea of some kind of global utopia, one world government, giving them maybe the benefit of the doubt for their intentions. I don't know if you can, but some people think that if we can get rid of the borders, no wars, it's John Lennon's song all over, and that's what they see as a possibility. But inherent in all of these kind of things, it's always power.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just stunning to me that they want to streamline migration and to help migrants circumvent national safeguards.
Right.
They're becoming an enemy of nation states, I think, with the purpose of trying to eliminate nations. And you got to have government somewhere, and it's going to all be United Nations or some other international organization.
She writes, Natalie Winters writes, what began as a tool for verifying vaccination status at borders is now being adapted to use in refugee flows, migration corridors, and humanitarian response environments. And unlike the COVID-era measures, it is not being framed as temporary. It is being built into the system.
Yeah.
So all kinds of...
All right, got a question for you fellas here.
All right.
There's a lot more American troops headed to the Middle East, right? Like 10,000 more, is that right?
That's what they say.
Yeah, if you include the 82nd Airborne and the Marines that are on their way.
Okay, why are they going over there?
Well, we're not being told. President Trump has said, well, maybe we'll take Karg Island. That's the location for a lot of the oil refineries. And
say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, I couldn't even say it one time slowly. And it's kind of like the area where the oil is put into tankers so they can, the oil can be transported to countries that are buying it. So, but other than that, I don't know what they intend to do with this very minimal number of troops. Even 10,000, that sounds a lot to us. But that's a country of 93 million people. You're not going to invade Iran with 10,000 troops. Or even the other 40,000 that we have stationed around the Middle East. 50,000 isn't enough. I'm not sure what they're going to do.
I think when you start, sometimes you can start something that can get out of hand. Like, I don't know if we were talking off the line or if this was on air about fires that someone set. I guess it was someone who was talking earlier today at our meeting. You intended to burn some boxes in the backyard, and all of a sudden they're calling the fire department to make sure it doesn't burn the forest and the house down. I think Donald Trump has the best of intentions, and I think he thinks he has it in hand, and he might have it in hand. I'm certainly am not privy to all the classified information that he knows. But I think also you get to a point where, well, now we have no choice but to send troops because, we're here. It consumes you, it pulls you, drags you, it sucks you in. I think he wouldn't be the first president should this end up being the quote unquote boots on the ground scenario that everybody is worried about, and I don't know that it will. But I think you could make an argument that the war just kind of sucked Trump in. I mean,
well, the first Gulf War, almost 700,000 U.S. troops were deployed to the Persian Gulf region for that war.
When we invaded Iraq?
That was after Iraq took Kuwait. And you remember, we took our time getting everything in place. We expected high casualties from that. It turned out to not be as dangerous an operation. It was carried out perfectly, all of that. But the Iraqi army, even though it was, I think at the time, fourth largest in the world, I don't think they're like the Islamic Revolutionary Guard in Corps in Iran. And the terrain in Iran is much different than that flat desert.
That's what I was going to say.
Where we were able to, do remember Norman Schwarzkopf did an end run and went around the dug-in Iraqi positions. And you just can't do that in Iran.
A lot of mountains in Iran.
And probably would need similar amounts of troops. And I think it could turn into a bloodbath. And that's my fear for our military, our men and women.
I don't know. It could turn out well. It
could. I mean, they might collapse.
How do you get into the guy's head? I think everything that you digest through the mainstream media, you take with a grain. We've always counseled this. Take with a grain of salt because there's a bias there. Especially when it concerns anything concerning the government or the War Department, they do not like Donald Trump. They do not like.
Yeah, but I'm not going by the mainstream media.
No,
you're going on Trump's own word.
No, I'm not doing that either. I look at sources that are former military or whatever. Listen. President Trump may have this well in hand. I'm not trying to criticize the president during a war. Okay. He may actually be having conversations with people in Iran. Iran may very well be near collapse and may need a little bit of a push for that regime to fall. I'm saying that the experts that I read, I can't even name them. I just know where to go when I'm searching. They're saying this is a very risky proposition, that we're going to eventually wind up seeing this escalate, and we put boots on the ground, like dropping the U.S. Marines into Karg Island, which has probably been mined.
That, for those who don't know, that's an island in the Adriatic.
No, it's in the Gulf. It's the Gulf of Oman. Okay. This is the island off the coast of Iran, where they have an oil refinery, I think, and this is where oil is loaded onto tankers that take that oil to be sold to other countries. It sits off the coast of Iran, and the U.S. has threatened to take it because it would, if you could do it and keep it, you could put a tremendous economic squeeze on Iran because that is going to fund everything they're trying to accomplish. But I'm sure it's targeted for missiles, drone strikes. Those Marines probably mined those Marines that land there. You're going to have to bring in other troops to keep them safe or to even be able to extract them if you need. I'm certainly hoping and praying for the best. I don't want this to turn into a bloodbath for our Marines or soldiers.
I read as much as I can about this, and I try to be very careful in who I trust, and we're all trying to project into the future what might happen. The only empirical evidence that I have to go on is the track record. And to this point, everything is going very well. And I'm going to hope and pray, and kind of my guess is that things are going to go well, that this is in hand until I'm proven wrong, because to this point, the only things you can point to are successes.
Yeah, I just when you're sending tens of thousands of more troops into a war theater, it does suggest at least that the president is considering sending them to fight.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Over there, and boots on the ground would be a game changer, in my opinion, with the American public.
I read a story.
Well, especially since I understand what you're saying, Steve. I don't disagree. We're all hoping and praying this doesn't turn into a disaster or catastrophe. But the president said when we started, no boots on the ground. We can do this by air, and now we can't, obviously, if we're sending troops. So that means to me that things have already moved outside of the parameters, at least publicly stated by the president, and that means that things can continue to get out of hand. And I don't know. I have family members who are in the military. I don't want them being sent into a meat grinder. I do approve of the fact that the president, with Israel, we decided what other presidents have said, Iran can't have nuclear weapons. President Trump said, all right, then we're going to get the job done. Okay. But now the president has said we're going to take their oil, and that is not simply we're going to keep them from getting nuclear weapons. I don't want this thing expanding, mission creep, whatever you want to call it, into something that drags us into another war and maybe tanks the economy. Listen, none of us knows if God's favor is on President Trump, which I pray that it is. Maybe this is going to get done. Iran will have regime change. The Middle East will have a great deal more peace. President Trump should get every award that is known to man if he's able to pull this off. On the other end of the spectrum is Russia says, well, you guys can do it. You can take what you want. We're going to invade Poland. And China says we're taking Taiwan. And North Korea says we're taking South Korea. And I'm not saying those.
And their oil.
And their oil. This is what I don't want to see happen. So this is on a spectrum. And maybe it's not going to be the worst or the best of things that happen. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle.
From the political point of view, what you're expressing was right smack dab in the middle of CPAC, and it divided the people. I was reading an article. It divided the people that there. This is one thing that could, because there's all kinds of rumors now about a split in MAGA with all the Candace Owens weird stuff, Tucker Carlson stuff. That's not a split. This could be.
Yeah. Anyway, we should be praying for the president and his administration. He's jumped into it, and it is kicked open a hornet's nest, and we need to pray that God gives wise counsel and God helps, because the Iranian regime is evil. It is absolutely evil. We couldn't let them get a nuclear weapon. I will credit President Trump.
And the Israelis, too.
And the Israelis.
I mean, the Israelis have inflicted a lot of damage on the hierarchy there of the regime. They would like to see a regime change, because people say, well, why? Well, if you had a country that could fire missiles and potentially a nuclear weapon at you, and every morning they get up saying death to America, death to Israel, and that's their religious beliefs. These aren't people you can reason with necessarily in a logical way. They're motivated by their religious ideology, which is, if you read about them, it's apocalyptic in view. I'm talking about the mullahs who are in charge of Iran. And so you're dealing with people who are, keep telling you they hate you and they want to kill all the Jews, and they keep funding Hezbollah and Hamas, and so you just, if you're Israel, you're going, well, you know what? We're tired of living like this, and they've threatened us, and they're about to get a weapon that can just wipe us wipe us out here. Now, Israel would retaliate and wipe them out too. But if you're
that's what they want.
But yes, but if you're committed to a religious ideology, you may not necessarily care that.
That's the goal. I think the goal is immolation of the
Yes.
that's going to bring whatever
the
their
12th imam.
Yeah. So they don't care who pulls the trigger as long as the trigger's pulled.
So I say that to say, well, why has Israel acted so decisively? I think they decided we're tired of living with this threat, and these people are about to get a weapon that could, we live the Holocaust again here.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to take that chance. I think that's what Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, came to the U.S., remember, about a month ago?
Yeah.
Or 6 weeks ago, and he met with President Trump for 3 hours, quote, behind closed doors, and didn't take questions and left. I think they were discussing what Israel was going to do, and it basically probably led to, Benjamin Netanyahu saying, "Are you with us or not?" Because we're going to do what we have. We're going to have to do what we have to do as much as we can to protect our country.
To this point, it feels like the United States has wielded the sledgehammer and Israel is fighting with the scalpel. I don't know. Just
what?
United States.
Oh, you mean? I see what you're saying. I didn't mean to suggest.
That's fine.
Scalpel. You mean they're taking it
more precision stuff.
Precision, yeah, they're precision. They're trying to take out the leadership.
They take the leadership,
and their also their capability to launch these missiles into Iran. Into Israel.
And they're targeting specific stops. Like checkpoints.
Well, President Trump said, we've hit what 10,000 or 13. What did he say? 13,000 targets, and we got 3,000 more to go.
I didn't see that quote.
He talks more about war out should probably be behind closed doors only, but he just talks out loud. He said that we've hit 10,000. We got 3,000 more to go. That's what he's targets.
Yeah,
is what he said. So,
by the way, I think I said Karg Island. I forget what I said. It's in the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman.
Persian Gulf. Yeah, it's way north of the Strait of the Trump Straits. Straits of
Trump. Yeah, Strait of Trump.
Yeah.
So Trump also said that the U.S. is in, quote, serious discussions with a, quote, new and more reasonable regime in Iran, but warns if a ceasefire is not agreed to, the U.S. will hit sites it has purposely not yet touched.
I think we're in the driver's seat. I just don't know if we're going to crash the car yet.
All right. Sound like a country song.
Doesn't it?
Next story.
All right. A watchdog group called the National Legal and Policy Center has filed 27 complaints with the Federal Election Commission saying that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez improperly used campaign funds, about $19,000 worth of campaign funds. She said they were being used for leadership training and consulting, but they, in fact, according to this National Legal and Policy Center, went to a psychiatrist named Dr. Brian Boyle, who is known for interventional psychiatry, specializes in treating depression, PTSD, anxiety, specifically through ketamine therapy.
What is that?
Ketamine is
a drug.
It's a low-dose anesthetic. Basically, it's a pill to make you not care as much.
So, Alexandria Ocasio. So we don't know whether she's guilty of this or not, right?
She's been accused of.
It's criminal. It would be a
misuse of campaign finance,
spending violation under federal election law. But she characterized it as being leadership training. Maybe she was talking about herself.
Yeah,
she's getting leadership training by going to this psychiatrist.
Well, they say it's a misuse of the funds. So,
well, it's certainly not leadership training as the Federal Elections Commission
not as she wants
designate.
Not as she wants to portray it.
Yeah,
and the PTSD might be from her time in Germany when she tried to come out on the national stage and just got kicked. She did not present well.
Is she giving signs that she wants to run for president on the Democratic side?
She was up until the fiasco in Germany a couple months ago.
Is that where she was asked?
She was asked
foreign
about
policy questions.
Yeah, foreign policy about Taiwan, and she almost couldn't tell where it was. It was
so
not a good look.
Yeah, the maps of Iraq, such as
exactly, yeah,
such as the Iraq.
the Iraq.
Google Miss South Carolina, people.
Yeah.
I want to know what we're talking about here.
Oh, that's one of the that is probably one of that's a top 20 most embarrassing moments in world history.
Yeah, but anyway, bless her heart.
Yeah.
She survived it.
She did.
South Carolina, she survived it. She's all right. We'll see you back here tomorrow, everybody. Thanks to Steve, Ed, and I don't have time. Everybody else for joining us today.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity